Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Universal Dialect Show. This is show number 30, and I have a great, awesome guest on. He's a researcher, host of YouTube's The Real Jimmy Roberts One, and owner or co-owner of the site MarsFam.net. I'd like to welcome Jimmy Roberts. How you doing, sir?
We're doing great, man. How's it going, Chris?
It's going awesome, my man. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. A couple of quick questions before we get into it.
Right.
Who is the fake Jimmy Roberts?
And the fake Jimmy Roberts. Well, let me tell you something. I've had a lot of names through the years. I've had the Honest Texan for commercial audio work, voiceovers, and they said, I had an agent one time tell me, people will buy anything from you. They just need to hear your voice. And so it was Honest Texan. I had gone through all these names, a creek jumper on Facebook for a bicycle incident I had one time. I jumped the creek. I just didn't land very well. And then the real Jimmy Roberts comes from, there was a Nickelodeon show called Out of Jimmy's Head.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was about a kid that had hair about like mine that had an accident when he was 12 years old. And they did a brain transplant with him. Well, I got to looking this up, and the kid's name on the show was Jimmy Roberts. And I had an accident, that creek jumping accident, when I was 12 years old, and had 74 stitches in my mouth and head and all that. So it's like these guys almost went and got my identity and made this show out of it. And you look at the kid and the black kid behind him with the afro, that would have been my best friend that lived next door. Everything that was going on in this was related to me. And I know it was just a coincidence, right, but that's where it started, like 15 years ago with the real Jimmy Roberts One. Now, there are YouTube accounts that have popped up called the really real Jimmy Roberts, the really real Jimmy Roberts, and the fake Jimmy Roberts, and the really fake Jimmy Roberts. I've seen them.
Wow.
I don't know who these guys are, but they're making fun of me, I guess, but that's okay. You know what they say.
F them. And so MarsFam.net, is that all yours, or you have a team?
It is, and a guy, David Gannett, who's a 3D expert in that field, he comes in and tries to do a lot of stuff. And the reason I made MarsFam.net was to have another venue for people to go to get to see what we were putting out there, because the stuff is so good. And YouTube has gone through, and we've talked about this before, you and I have, we've gone through these times where YouTube suppresses us, and they've never given me a strike. They have never cut my monetization. And but about 3 years ago, they did change their algorithm that pretty much cut us out of any growth. And they've changed that back a little bit again now to where it's a little better. But I wanted to give people a place, kind of a central place to go and look at some things and say, you know what, maybe it's, maybe all these people talking about stuff on Mars, maybe they're not all just crazy. Maybe it's not all about Dracula's coffin and goblins and little short people and this and that. Maybe there's really something going on here, and that would lead them to my YouTube videos. So that was the reason that Mars Fam started. It was the name. My daughter that lives in Fayetteville, Arkansas, came up with the name.
Awesome.
That's the story there.
That's the story. I became a fan of your site through a recommendation, because obviously in the past you said the algorithms change in YouTube, so obviously they're doing something that's driving people in certain directions, either away from something or towards something. But back then, as you know,
until last December,
right, it was like a Wild West. You had all types of videos popping up, and then the recommendations would be the stuff that you would click on most, or that you were most interested in, and your site popped up one time. And ever since then, I thought it was awesome, just the work that you've done, the detail and everything. So can we get into the origin story of Jimmy Roberts and what led you down the path?
We sure can, and it's a really strange story, but I've had certain encounters throughout my life with things that should not have been there, and so has my son. And some of them we may know who they are, and some of them we may not. And some of them I may not be able to tell who they are, even if I knew. But from the time I was a little kid, I was interested in what was going on Mars, from the National Geographic magazines that had the big Viking lander spreads out. And even then, I knew something wasn't right. It always bugged me, those images. Everything was just kind of orange. It's like, but we just kind of accepted it, and the original face on Mars and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just not one of these people that wants to get into a whole lot of conspiracy theories because you can spin your wheels on that stuff. Conspiracy theories, what people need to realize is there are such things as conspiracies out there. They do occur. And some of these theories are at least true, in their origins, from JFK assassination to, whether it's 9/11 or whatever. A bunch of them have some truth to them. This isn't all crazy, but I don't like getting into too many of them because you can just spin your wheels and you're never going to get anywhere. Mars, though, and space in general was different because of things that have occurred to me and people that I've sought out. I have come to know a number of individuals that I would say are extremely high up in this world, and it's a few different directions, and some of it came after, believe it or not, one of my first Mars videos that I put out. It was called Planet Mars, It's Not Just a Rock, and I was actually, and probably a couple million views on that. That's when things kind of took off. The interest was always there with me. Forgive me here. Let me step back a minute.
It's fine.
I was told some things throughout the years, either firsthand or secondhand, about things that had gone on, and that I was right, that these images weren't correct, and there was more going on there. And the first time that someone that had association with JPL scientists, a very close association, this was secondhand knowledge, and it was confided in me through this person that there was a genocide on Mars. And they've known about it. JPL, the other contractors in NASA and other space agencies have known about it since at least the 1970s. And that's what they were looking at. That's why all the interest in Mars had come about, was they discovered this somehow. And I think it was probably with the Viking landers because of the soil samples that showed that there was nuclear detonations there. And word of mouth, especially through Dr. John Brandenburg, who worked in that environment, who has come out and talked about the things that went on there. So I started looking through the pictures a little closer, especially the digital imagery from the Mars rovers, going back probably about 15 years ago. And it was pretty quick that I spotted out. I'm real good at detail, and I was noticing these pictures are inconsistent. These are supposed to be digital images. They should be pristine. You're either going to get the information or you're not. These aren't analog images. They should be pristine. Why do we have these areas that are blurry? Why do we have these areas that look like somebody's just painted over them? Why do we have this? Why does that look like something until you blow it up and it breaks apart, pixelize it? But this other image come from the same camera doesn't do that. I said, something's wrong here. And I started looking into it, and I actually put up that first video, Planet Mars, It's Not Just a Rock, and it took off. And I said, well, I got to do another one. So I did a one about stuff I found in NASA images around the moon. I discovered several unidentified flying objects around the moon from Apollo imagery that they had uploaded, digitized, going back. It's been 10, 15 years now since they did that. I made a video about that. It hit 6 million views. I said, so here we go. I'm real good at going through the images and seeing the ones that's got stuff and the ones that don't. And I don't spend all day doing this. I'm real quick at it. I kind of have a method. And my stuff has been different. And I've tried to associate through the years with people who do things like I do. David Gannett's one, Chris Maroney's another. These guys aren't all about little dragons and little tiny people. That's another story. I do want to mention that. It's claiming that everything that you see out there is a bird or a human or this or that. We've all gone through our mistakes in the past, but we know some things now through all of this and through the contacts that have come to me and had to approach me because of images that I put up. What I have been told is, yes, there was a genocide. It was tens of thousands of years ago. It was war. There were prohibited weapons. Now, who prohibited them? They were prohibited. They were nuclear in nature. Now, genocide does not mean everybody was killed. People think genocide means wiped out. It doesn't mean that. More than one source has let me know that those survivors of that war relocated, many of them, to here, and that is ancient Egypt, and that they eventually went elsewhere. Actually, ancient Egypt, some of Rome, and I've never gotten confirmation about South America. But the things that I've been told that blow my mind that I can never even talk about really ties things up for me. And one of the ways that I can show people that, this is really going on, and they're not up there looking at a bunch of rocks and oxidized dirt. And by the way, that's the reason the planet has a red tint when we see it. At oxidation, right. It was nuked, and that's what's going to happen. They went through the fallout and everything. And that's what we're seeing in a lot of these images. That stuff just caked on. There's mud, what we refer to as mud fossils. If you've seen anything on that, there's a lot of that. And that's what people are mistaking for living beings. When we look at these images, we look at them from every angle, and we're going to show some of these. Yep. I'm going to show some of them that show some of the more striking things that we're seeing. And we have a way that, you know what pareidolia is?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what the detractors and the trolls will come in and immediately say, I see the same things in the cloud. When I go outside, I see the same things when I look up at the clouds. And I usually tell them, if I respond at all, says, man, you need to get some help then, because you've got a serious problem. We got pareidolia busting capabilities. We look at these images from every angle that they have images. We've got mass cam images, right, left, hazard camera imagery. This is just from the rover Curiosity that I'm talking right now. We have mass cam, navigational cam, hazard cam. There's other cameras on there. We get every angle from every sol or Martian day that they took pictures where you can see this object, and we look at them in 3D. David Gannett has taught me, and I've taught, I think, thousands now, how to see side-by-side imagery in 3D without any glasses. It's a little eye-crossing technique, and it's beautiful. It works just like that. It's the clearest method that there is. So we look at everything like that. There is no two-dimensional pareidolia mistake that's made typically when we look at it in 3D, because, okay, wait a minute, this is actually sitting way back here. That's not a head on. That's not what we thought it was. Okay, but look at it. It is this. But we also confirm many, many, many things by that. Go in and take size and distance measurements using NASA's it's called the MSL Mars Science Lab Analyst Notebook. And it's it's their sanctioned site where the images go. You can get you've got the Cartesian method of up, down, left, right, positive, X, Z, kind of stuff I do for a living. So I'm kind of used to it. But you've got, when something's in 3D, forwards, backwards, up, down, left, right, all these images that are navigational camera images are left and right. That's how they navigate.
That's what cartographers use that.
Yes, exactly. So we use this to see it in stereoscopic 3D, but also go into this site I was talking about, the Analyst Notebook, and they have it set up nicely to where you can go in there and take measurements, height measurements, distance measurements, and they're accurate. People that say, they're lying to us about the size of things in these images. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're being honest about that. This is the people that are in the know are not being honest about what's really there. Some of these images are so fraudulent. Oh my goodness. We'll get to that in a minute. But we take measurements, and I take a calibrated, you may have seen some of these. I actually use my wife a lot. I take a calibrated image of a human and I stick it in the image to give everybody some perspective. Most of the things that we see on Mars, you immediately think it's a lot bigger than it really is. A lot of the things are quite smaller because the cameras are down close to the ground, and something will look like a huge mountain and it's really only 10 foot high. But by putting a human out there, and I'm not guessing on this, and that's accurate within a few inches normally, people look at it and say, oh, okay, I know what I'm looking at.
So how tall is your wife, by the way?
She is 5'1", and she insists that I say a half.
You know what?
5.
I do the same thing.
Well, I'm 6'4", man, so I don't worry about that.
Yeah, you don't
Everybody's
have to worry about that stuff, man.
yeah. So I guess that, I could ramble on about how things got started and people say, oh, you say, these people and this and that. But the thing about it is I don't talk about the things I can't talk about. Right. And people ask me, have you ever been? And the people that have not seen some of the imagery that we have that you're about to see, you're going to realize why people have asked me, have you ever been contacted and told to stop? Have you had found things, in your mail or this or that or whatever? I've never been told to stop. Have I been contacted? Oh, yes. I've gotten, ever since we took an image in that first Planet Mars, It's Not Just a Rock. And I might have missed a lot of stuff on that because I wasn't as good at the imagery back then, and knowing what is what and how to measure. But one thing we got right in that for sure was when we basically returned the color to an image and it showed the river flowing back behind a hill. And that got some people's attention. And I think they wanted to know how I knew that. And the honest truth is, I'm just good at digital imagery. I saw something was going on and I adjusted the contrast and it appeared. And nobody told me it was there. But there is a flowing river in many of these pictures. We found it since then, but it's sitting back in the back of it. And I'll show you that in a minute.
All right.
And so email, I've gotten used to knowing that somebody else is going to be in my email. I mean, they're going to cut through it like butter and they're going to see everything that I send out, that I receive. So I don't cross lines. There's just lines you don't cross in public. And if there's things that things that you've seen, and I've been tested on that. I've received things and stuff that you would not believe. And I just wanting to see if, will he put this out there? No. And they'll probably see this. And I say I can't, who is they? But yeah, I'm monitored, but don't cross the lines. And what I'm doing is not against the law. It's not unethical. It's showing what they have put out there. And I've basically exploit some of their mistakes. I think some of them are mistakes. I think some of them are, they didn't think anybody was going to figure out this way of getting through the image. And even with me doing that, people still don't care for the most part. Those that care do care. My job is to spread this to as many people as possible, because the quicker the world understands, as a cumulative consciousness, that we are not the only ones around. We've never been alone. And the higher ups in the know, with the need to know, they know this.
Right.
And I think the people that look at the original images from Mars are a very trite few. By the way, the raw data that people go and make these big gigapans, you'll see them out there of Mars. They're really good. These guys are really good. But I think 2 of the 3 guys that do those, they'll argue with me that raw data is raw. That's not raw, because their gigapans have the same obfuscation. And not to insult anyone's intelligence, if you don't use that word a lot, obfuscation just meaning you take a picture and you do something to it to make it just generally confusing, where you can't really, there's something going on here, but I can't tell what it is. Maybe taking out the contrast, maybe taking out the contrast in it, making it brighter. Now, all of a sudden, you don't really make out the individual things like you would have. And they do that in so many different ways in these images. And through the years, they've changed their ways of doing them. But they are being done, I believe, some of them automatically. And then that imagery is turned into the science data that we're getting off of there, and people are making the gigapans out of. It's right, the same analyst notebook I go to, it claims it's the raw data. I do not believe that. There's no way. We never see the raw data. I think these images, many of them I've said, are like 90% fake. Yeah, I really do. But I'm going to show you in a moment how we've gotten around some of that. I'll quit rambling on about all this happening.
No, it's all good, man.
I want to see something here. And after you see it, you're going to realize why I went ahead and spouted some of this out, because people have a million questions after they see some of this stuff. Because a lot of people, most people just do not realize the images that they have put out there. And then one of the first questions I get is, well, why do they even do it? Why, if they're going to mess with the images, why do they even bother putting them out there? I don't have an answer for that, but I think it's mind control 101, confuse the masses. That's all I can say. It's in your face nearly. I guess they have to put them out there. They have to show something for all the billions of dollars that they're spending. They got to produce something.
Yeah, they have to show proof that they're at least doing something.
Yeah. Well, so they're producing a dead planet is what they're producing, but every now and then they'll say something. But Curiosity rover or the new one they got up there has spotted a silver glob of something. What is it? Give me a break, man. We're so far past that. They did announce, for anyone that does not realize, in 2012, August, I believe, there was an announcement that liquid water had been found on Mars.
Right.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal. There's a huge acknowledgement. Huge. Okay. A lot of people don't realize that. But then he went on to say, under certain conditions. And my response to that was that it's wet.
Yeah.
Liquid water is liquid water. I don't care how it got there. Somebody has to kind of minimize this. They've got more than liquid water. They've got flowing water. There's a small river or large creek. I don't know what you want to call it. I think it's a small river that's running through most of the Curiosity soles. You can see it in the back, and they cover it up sometimes. Sometimes they don't. But I'm going to show that to everybody. And you tell me what direction you want to go to this, because man, I got some good stuff here.
Okay, so a couple of questions. Well, more of a statement than anything else, really. Is that have you ever heard of Gary McKinnon?
Yes.
Okay, so he's that guy in England that hacked into NASA, and then he found a folder that said something along the lines of doctored images. So we know that they doctor images, in space, moon, whatever.
Yes.
And then so let's talk about like this right? Because I know there's certain things you can't talk about. But what would be the advantage, or what would be the reason for them covering something like this off? Because wouldn't they want us to know our history? Wouldn't they want us to know? Of course not. Like, what would be the advantage to them? I mean, it's obvious, but I just want to hear you say it.
Well, why do they jump the bones of giants off into the ocean? Have you seen any of that? That's not fake. That's not fake at all. I've talked to someone firsthand who watched this being done. They find the bone entire. Some of these pictures you see on the internet of these being dug up, some of them are real. This has happened. Why would they hide that from us? They want us to live within our, and I say within our structure that we have, our religions that fight among themselves and sub-religions and why? Man, I don't know. I tell you what, we don't know our history. We do not really know our history, and we are really dumbed down. And it terrifies me to think that somebody wants it like that. I've always said that as far as extraterrestrials, if you found Earth and took a look at what humans do, there was a cartoon one time that showed some aliens looking at Earth, and he says, "Who is this?" He says, "Well, this is Earth, and they have nuclear weapons." And he said, the other guy said, "Well, should we be worried?" And he goes, No, they've got them pointed at each other. That's just that perspective right there is real. We are warlike between ourselves. We find ways to divide up. So if you were a extraterrestrial coming down and you saw us, if you were far more advanced than us than we were, which obviously you probably would you want to help us out? Why would you help us learn more and become a species that can go out and venture out with our weapons and this and that? Conquer. We conquer. That's what we do. We're going to try to do that. And if for some reason you had a race that came here that wasn't as advanced as we were, but maybe they had ships that I don't know if they commandeered, who knows? Well, they don't want to mess with us either, because we'll probably just kill them or put them in a cage. We're not good people overall. And it's just about every religion I think around the world has found ways to try to work around the way humans are, as a group.
I agree.
Always looking for that utopia with people. So, man, somebody's in control. Somebody's in control. Somebody's got to be in control, and somebody's in control of all of the space agencies.
All right,
because they're all in on this. They're all in on it. The Soviets were really going to come out with stuff in '89. I say Soviets; they had already fallen, but it had been the Soviet space team, and they did have a probe shot out of space. It was
Phobos, right? Over Phobos,
and Phobos 2, actually. And, they got pictures of the craft, and I know a bit more about it. I'm not going to say, but I will say that I've heard from a very good source why it was shot out of the sky. And they were going to come out with this. And they left a guy with the BBC, I believe it was. Might have been the BBC, but they were going to be on the BBC. They left him hanging at the last minute. They didn't show up. So it's never been really discussed as to why that happened. But they've got control over people. And I say they a lot. I say it with a capital T because, somebody's running things. And it's scary. It's scary to think that they're able to keep so many people quiet that may know things. Astronauts, first man to step foot on the moon. He knew something that was so big that he did not want to be associated really with the moon. If you notice, he never Armstrong,
he never interviewed. He
didn't want to interview. Yeah. He didn't like it, and until right up there close to the somewhere within the last few years, he finally gave a speech, and he mentioned in that speech, he did mention about through the lies, there's great things that we can do. So he let out all he could, but we can speculate about that all day long, and we can try to figure out why they don't want us to know. But all I tell people is somebody's in control, and they don't, and it is regulated. What we know, what we're able to learn, that's highly regulated. Some people call this a prison planet. I think it probably is. Look at the fuel we have to burn just to try to get something up off the ground. We all know that's not the way it's probably supposed to be done. People that have seen flying craft that aren't balloons and other things going around that send fighters to shoot down. There is a propulsion system that we don't understand. There, 0 point energy, which is a no to discuss as far as, really getting into 0 point energy and how that works. That's a big no out in the YouTube and everything world. That'll get you killed. Right. I've known people, they're gone, but they were into trying to prove it and how it works and everything. You just don't do that, So my answer is, hey man, I don't know.
I got you. All right, so let's get into throw up some photos and go.
Well, okay. Well, my son recently asked me something. He said, well, why is it? And I say, my son, he's 31. He says, do people not realize that squares and rectangles aren't supposed to be showing up randomly in pictures on other planets? And there's so much common sense that we're forgetting. And I call it, this is something I call the Independence Day paradox. And I'm talking about the movie.
Right.
It was a good movie. And I had a problem with being able to put but because I work with computers and that type of stuff, being able to come up with a virus and injecting it into a system nothing about. Not only was it not a Windows-based system, it's nothing about it. Oh, he writes it and then sticks it in there and it works and it takes it down and gets in the others. That's absurd. Okay, well, somebody will say, but it's a movie about aliens attacking Earth. I said, nobody's proven that can't happen. But I can prove to you that you're not going to write a virus and stick it in a machine that's not running Windows and you don't know anything about it. That is impossible. And so it only bothered the people that knew computer programming and stuff. They're the only ones that bothered in that movie, and it ruined the whole movie for me. My wife's an RN, and it'll ruin a movie for her when they go in there do medical mistakes. That I'm like, oh, it just goes right past me. So you will live alongside a movie in real life sometimes, and I think people are doing that. They're believing things that are thrown out there by the media or whatever. They're not thinking that can't be. These pictures that we look at from Mars, it shouldn't look the way that it's being presented. People need to go back and look at areas of Earth where nobody lives, where it's nothing but rocky terrain, boulders that nobody can live there. It's just laid around and falling around. It's just rocky, dusty, myriad shapes of rocks and everything. Nothing looks like anything.
Right. What your images remind me of? Göbekli Tepe. Very similar.
The what?
Göbekli Tepe. Have you heard of Göbekli Tepe?
Yes. Yeah. I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all. I want to show everybody something. Let's start with the first thing. I'm just going to let this run through some of the images I have here. That should be obvious to everyone that should not be on a dead planet. You
can see an angle. It's like angles.
Yes, and that is about, I believe that measured about 4 foot, 5 foot across the face of that. We have thousands of things like that on Mars. I want you to look. I'm gonna let this run through for a second. Just a few of the blocks and angles like this. That's a completely other image. There's another image.
Wow.
These are just some that I threw together.
Was that water behind that?
It looked like it there, but I don't think so. It did look like it. These images show up all the time, and people are getting so used to it that they're just dismissing it. Squares, rectangles, blocks, they shouldn't be there. When you see stuff like that, it's telling me, hey, that to me is absolutely screaming artificiality, or what let me show this one. What David Gannett, a 3D expert, calls non-fractal objects. Non-fractal objects. If it's non-fractal, you can pretty much bank on it. It is going to be something artificial. Now, if you just look at that image right there, you can tell it looks like, and most of these, when you really zoom into them, you can tell that there's things that are painted over, whether there's marks on these blocks or whatever. They don't want you to see the texture. I've said in most of these, the Martian dirt or mud or sand or whatever we're looking at, most of that is fake. And I'm going to prove that in a minute on this new method that I've come up with that's really changed things. And I think it's freaked people out and caused the government, whoever, to get in my inbox again. But I figured it out on my own. Nobody told me how to do it. And what this is it's an exclusion method. And I'm going to explain to you why I even did that. These blocks and everything indicate, intelligence. It's somebody has built this. But there's something else that I like to look at, and that is the underpinning of a civilization that's advanced. What are you going to find? You're not just going to find blocks. I don't think that this, in fact, I know this civilization that was there was not like a Bronze Age civilization. They were very advanced. And let me show you something here. I have let's see. Did I disappear?
No, you're still there.
Am I still there? Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to show you, I've got an image here that I want to show you that is going to explain my interest in. There we go.
There we go.
Okay. That hill is about, I'm going to give you kind of looking down. This is an area of Mars called Dingo Gap, and that's Moonlight Valley down below, they call it. And it's not as big as it looks. When you go down here, this very obvious burned out rectangle, it looks like there was a foundation down there. And then here, of course, this one's pretty famous. This is one of the best things that there is. It's There was a structure here of some type, and that's about, I think I measured that 9 by 9 by 9, and that is in feet. And this is a roughly 40, 40, or 30, 30, and 40 across this rectangle. We've done extensive work looking at this. There's cement, whatever flowed through here. You've got broken cement blocks and everything laying everywhere. It's been heavily gone over and absolutely great stuff. But right up here, this area has some things where I believe is where I was looking. Where that's not it. That's not what we're looking at. I want to give you a size representation there. Here we go. Let's go ahead and get this set up. Here's the size of what we're looking at. I put her in here. She's 5'1.5", and that gives you an idea how big this is. It's not that huge. It's also not that small. There is so much evidence right here in this area of the nuts and bolts of a civilization. Now, at first glance, it just looks rocky. But there's rebar in here.
But that's NASA doing this, right? Altering it to make it look just rocky, correct?
Sometimes.
Okay.
But some of it does look basically like this, some of it, because through thousands and thousands of years, you had fallout and it's just rubble. And right. There's a lot of, however that fallout ended up weathering and all and hardening, you've got a lot of natural, what do you want to call it, disguise that's just sitting on the top of a lot of objects. It's just, you'll have something there that's an obvious, let's say a statue. It looks like I've seen one that looked like an elephant, right. But it was so covered in something and it hardened, it looked like mud. And you could tell that one might have been actually the way it happened, and everything around it was made to look like that one.
Right. So it's caked with
yeah. So some of it's, it's got a natural cover that's hiding stuff, and they just kind of go in there on some of them and take away the rest of it. And you'll see a lot of that in this. But one of the first things I noticed here, and I've got it marked, is all these little points right here. This is all reinforcement bar, every bit of it sticking out. They're evenly paced through here. They go all the way across. There's hundreds of them throughout this image. They didn't get in there and take them out. And I saw that and I said, you know what? There's bound to be more. And sure enough, I just found it absolutely all over this thing. Big pieces, small pieces. And it pixels out a little bit right there. And down here at the bottom, there's a block of about 1 by 1 right here with the best we can figure is some type of concrete anchor sticking out. You can see it right there.
Yeah.
Either that or a tie off. Okay. And this is about 1 foot by 1 foot. And this is one of those that has this stuff caked on it, like I'm saying. But then it's got an additional, what I call it, a digital facade added to it also. Now, we see something like this. What I do is I go and find more images of it. And I found the stereo images. I looked at it through stereographic 3D, and I presented this for others to look at as well. It's just not a trick of light. It's actually sticking out.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Okay, so have you been contacted by engineers or people in the construction industry that told you, wow, that's rebar?
Oh, yes, many times. And they don't like coming out and saying it where everybody can hear them.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you about one of those in a minute. Yes, I've got several on this last one that I did. And they said, oh, man, absolutely. That is a downed building. And it's ones like this. You look at it and people just see, well, these are all just rocks laying around until you get to looking at them closer and up. Let's get up through here. Hold on a minute. There's some more of the.
Yeah, you can see it. Sticking
out through there, sticking out. And there is actually a. Hold on, give me a second here. Let me get my bearings. Okay, here we go. Let's say, and
you can see seams too, like certain like seams.
There's seams, and you get things like this.
Yeah.
That it's just it's just not a normal shape to just be kind of, sitting around. And you go over here to the left. Things like that. People are just dismissing that.
That's design.
It's about design, and it's you'll even start seeing motif on these things in writing. Uh, here's another one right above it. These aren't random rocks. And check this one out. Now, of course,
Look at that. Wow.
oh, I know that's pretty incredible. But look at this back here behind it. Look at that.
Yeah, that's like almost like a Roman or Greek architecture almost.
It is. Look at that. It's beautiful.
The
And
accents.
we've got more images of that, and we got it in 3D, and it is absolutely authentic. Whatever it is, it's sitting back there, and it's absolutely beautiful. And you can go through just this image right here all day long and find, thousands of objects that should not be there in that shape, but at a distance, it just looks like a dirty mess. By the way, there's that water. That is, that they've got it covered up a little bit back there, and I'm going to show you in a minute some more of it. I want you to see some of the other nuts and bolts type things, and that's what I call it, because to me, Mars is not that much like different than us. We're finding things there that I know when I say rebar and concrete, people scoff, say, well, you know what? They probably didn't call it rebar, but that's short for reinforcing bar. And maybe it's not concrete, but it's some type of a compound substance that's molded, around reinforcement. And we found pinning now, and that's what I'm about to show you with this. Let's see. Let's open it up with this. This is one of my. Hey, y'all, the real Jimmy Roberts one here. We don't want to hear that. Okay, here we go.
Why not? Why not?
Hold on, bear with me. Okay, there we go. Now, let's switch over here. I want to look at this. Okay, so this is one of the things that we recently did that is just absolutely mind-blowing. This is a navigational camera image. That shadow back there is just probably maybe 20 meters away, that shadow you're looking at. This is actually pretty up close. The ground right there is just a few meters away. But notice how white it is. Your navigational camera images are, they're grayscale. And they're overexposed a lot of the time. And that's where I started thinking, you know what? I bet we've got information in these things. Now, I'm going to show you that what we're looking at here is complete fakery. And people should notice right off these dark areas. They just say, well, that's Martian mud or whatever. Yeah, it's not. Watch this. Stream. No, we don't want to do that. Here we go. Apologize for that. Here we go. There we go. Now, let me kill this. Now, we're going to zoom into this. Now we ought to be able to do this. Okay. We've used it. This isn't a negative. This is called exclusion.
Yeah.
And what I want to do is that this is going to zoom in, and you're going to see lines of reinforcing bar or rebar and cement all over the place. First of all, you should notice this right here, and you could see that in the original image. Now we're going to scan across here. We're going to get in. By the way, all this stuff that you're seeing, we've looked at in 3D. We've looked at it at other angles. It is not an illusion. It isn't a freak happening because of what I did. It is really there. And look at those big pieces. Now I want to show you, right there and there. And here is the way that it looked. Let's back out here. Okay, that's the way it was presented. That's fake. That is fake. That, if anything, is almost a negative. It is that. We are used to seeing that. And researchers for years have been looking at these images like this and going, why do we have these weird shapes down here that's just like mud that's shaped funny like they painted it on there? Sometimes maybe they did, but sometimes what it is they have increased the exposure on these so much, it gets so bright that it's taken out the detail. What the exclusion does is it takes the whites and inverts them, and it leaves the black alone. Okay. And what we get is a much, much truer image of what's going on. Now, this is going to go back to, not only that, you see a lot of other stuff laying around.
Yeah, now, that exclusion makes the details pop.
Oh, it's popping out. Now look over on this far left side. What came to life?
Yeah, you can see edges.
Yeah, there's something underneath. So
Yeah.
what's going on here is there has been so much caked on top of this destroyed civilization, at least in this area that the rover's in here, that it's running around right on top of everything. Just like we uncover buried civilizations here on Earth every few years. That's what's going on here, and that's what they're looking at. There is absolutely no way that that's not artificial. And somebody wants to tell me, yeah, but you jacked with the picture. Well, the thing is, I didn't draw any of it. And if you watch some of the videos, especially that we put out in December on this, we show how we did it, and we prove these from different angles. We prove them with measurements that these places where it looks like it dips down, it actually does dip down. It really does. And that's what these measurements on the navigational image that's fake because it's too bright sometimes don't seem to match up with what we're looking at. That's because this is what it's supposed to look like. This is the real Mars right here. And this is some of the truest stuff that you'll ever see. Now, since we started figuring this out, we found dozens and dozens more images that were done the same way. And I have been contacted by construction people, by engineers about this. And especially right in here, they say, man, that is a collapsed frame. They said that is absolutely a collapsed frame. And you can see it. You can see the center piece right here running through and all these pieces along here that are attached to it.
Right.
And it's just collapsed down on itself. And a lot of this that we're seeing here, there are things when you do this method that don't need the exclusion. They're actually not overexposed. And you're seeing that over here, these objects that just kind of look kind of funny, and maybe this. And we've proven that too. We've gone into areas to where, well, it really doesn't need it, or it is overexposed. But when we apply it, well, nothing really happens. You can tell it changed, but all this stuff doesn't magically appear. These things don't magically appear unless it's there. And this is something this is brand new stuff just as of last month. And we're already proving that this is the real thing. And from multiple angles, it looks the same way. And the thing that really blew me away and proved it for me immediately was when I took the left and right navigational image, applied it to both, looked at it in 3D, and wow, it was all there in 3D, the depth, everything behind every little piece of rebar that you're seeing there, every piece of this, it was all there in 3D. This is all real. That's really how it looks. And this is the right navigational image from the same thing. Now, it should be obvious to people that there's things laying around here like this object. That it's not a rock at all. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
that thing's about a half a meter wide. It's, come on, people. And this was not created by the exclusion, by the way. That was there before I ever did that. You could see it. But see that area behind it with the big X? There's an X going across it right here. Okay, that is a depression. And what we figured out is there's it was funneling water for whatever reason, because let's back up here. Originally, back this all the way up to the beginning. I want you to see what that looked like before we did that. It's there. See that shadow?
Yeah.
That shadow is covering that depression. So we covered our butts on that too. We measured that and showed that there actually is a depression. This was not caused by the exclusion work. Let's go back forward here. There actually is a depression right about here where my cursor is about 2.5 feet that it's dropping down. And there's a couple of boards or something laying across it here. Let me let this run across here so people can look across there. There's several areas in here. This is that entrance that looks like steps. We've not been able to prove or disprove. Water probably came through here or out. There's, let's see, we're going to move back to the right. Here we go. Brought it out even a little more. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff just kind of laying around, but well, that's really neat right there. And there's an opening right here. There is a hole right here. So we think probably water was coming through it. There's some type of 2.5 foot tall. It looks like a stairwell, and that's another subject all in itself. Now, there it is right there. That's the way that they presented it.
Are you a Dodgers fan? I saw that Dodgers thing.
I saw that come up, and I am not. I'm a lifelong Astros fan.
Okay, yeah, I'm a baseball
Yeah,
fan.
and I don't want to hear all the cheating stuff. We're done with that. Anyway,
It's over with. Yeah.
I've loved them since '79. I don't know what that Dodgers mess was. Just to let people know, we go in here and, we really try to prove this stuff out. Here's where we took measurements of this. And if you look, I'd actually just show here. These are some of the charts we got back showing that is a depression. And, people will scoff and say, well, you can have a depression anywhere. I said, yeah, but not one that looks like that. And
so that's the actual size of it, using your wife as a reference.
Yes. If I can get that to pause just a second there when she comes in. There we go. Yeah. Wow. Right there. I got her in there. And
it looks bigger without her, but it's actually not.
Well, that's big. What normally happens. It normally does. And we generally think things are bigger than they are. Okay, there we go. That's about what we're talking about. Okay. Now, it's been another subject lately, this area right here. And if people notice, it looks like there's steps going up it.
Right.
We have not, and it really does look like it. And they're in there. They look like steps. We've seen it from several angles. The thing about it is it's only 2.5 feet high. So if those were steps, then it is for a
smaller race.
Yes. And here we go with the small Martian thing. I can neither confirm nor deny, let me put it that way, that I have been told. I can neither confirm nor deny that there is one race there that was a couple of meters high. I'm talking about, 96. No, excuse me. Yeah, no, not meters, a couple of feet high, 96 centimeters, probably about 2 feet. That there's two basic races. One, roughly our size, a little taller, 6 foot average. The other was small. So knowing that, I can neither confirm nor deny that I've been told that. I'm not going to rule that out as a stairwell. That's the only reason I haven't ruled that out. I don't chase the little green men up there, and I used to think it was ridiculous to think that. And they may not be green, but I just want to say, let's not throw it out yet.
Right.
Some of the other objects, I want to look at this thing. And you might have seen this before, Chris. That thing in the back, does that look like a rock to you? Here's the thing about that. Yes. Oh, absolutely. And with hoses coming off. Well,
yeah.
This area right here.
Looks like a generator.
It does. Now, I just want people to know that that's there before I did the exclusion process on the image. You can see it clearly. It's there already. Nothing is done to that. In fact, I've taken all that off of this image right here. That's the way it looks. Now, tell me why people aren't, you put this in front of a skeptic and they start throwing things at you that just really don't make sense. Like, well, that could be anything. Really? You tell me how that it could not be anything that is not a non-fractal object. That is not a rock. I'm sorry. That is not just something random sitting there on the surface of Mars. And we've got a lot of stuff like this. People don't realize that this stuff is there. And it's known that me and other people are putting this out there, but people just aren't really catching on. They still think that we're all just a bunch of quacks. That's an artificial device. And to me, it looks like something that may be in use now because it's not covered up like everything else. It doesn't have all the mud and fallout and hardened stuff on it that a lot of this other stuff does. Just quickly on this, there's other images like here in that same area where you can see the same thing. There's something going on underneath the ground there.
Yeah, like something wants to pop out of it.
Yeah, we're sitting on top. If you look back here, here's that depression, that rectangular depression, and this whole area here. We looked at the rover's footsteps here. It came up to here, then it took a left and went way over there to the left to get closer. It couldn't get through all those holes right there. And when you look at it in the original, they're not there. So this is the reason it didn't go in that direction. We get kind of deep in some of this stuff that we look at to dispel the trolls and the the critics when they come in there. I don't, you know, we argue amongst ourselves about what things are and what is something and what's not. But one thing that people like Chris Maroney and David Gannett, myself, have in common is we all know that this is going on. You know, we say, oh, look, let's stop and talk about this. This is artificial. We know that there's a civilization here that was destroyed and they're looking at it, right? Yes. Okay. Let's just go from there. Now, as to what that is, you know, we can argue about that all day long. Right. But let's remember our base understanding is the same for most of us. Unfortunately, it's not like that for most of the people in the world. Now, not everybody gets excited. This is another problem. Let me open this with this. I can show people these nuts and bolts, and I can show them squares and blocks and this and that, and they're like, okay, yeah, something's going on, but it doesn't upset. It doesn't, they say upset. It doesn't excite a lot of people that want to be entertained. So let me show a couple of things that is probably a little more entertaining.
Well, they're not entertained because it has nothing to do with the Kardashians. Or,
yeah, that's exactly right. Well, look at this. What do you see?
I see like almost like a statuesque looking thing. It's something protruding out of the side of the mountain.
Yeah, there's a couple of them actually. You've got this right here. There's a ball here, and it's very serpent-like here, and then you have another here.
Yeah,
this is less than 1 foot high, sitting
looks
up on
Egyptian,
the side of it.
Almost
looks very Egyptian, and that is a common theme in areas on Mars. And remember what I told you. You know, my understanding is that was the place of relocation. Now go forward here. Here's something else. I'll back that back up, Jimmy. What was that? You see this?
Yeah, I saw it real quick. Yeah.
Not only do we have metallic pieces down here on the lower
left.
We get on here, lower left. Look at these components. Now, this is about, I think, 5 inches across. It's very small. But we have stuff like this all over now. There's there's either mud on it or they've added this fakery to it. But people look right past that, not realizing this is not something that you're supposed to see. Okay? It's just not. This right here is not something you're supposed to see. And that is very good. We got multiple pictures of this.
Yeah, it looks like a craft either on its side or fuselage.
It does. And this is actually 2 different pieces. Objects.
Yeah.
They're 2 different. We saw this in 3D. This one is back behind this one. So I think it may be 4 foot high, I believe. That's kind of the range of where it is. And yeah, you can see quite a bit of detail on it, actually. A lot of people have seen that image. It's a pretty famous Mars image now. This is one that's finally gotten pretty famous.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I put this out years ago and asked people, all right, nobody knows what this is. I know we all see that eyeball. It looks like a dog's head or something looking to the left. Right. But how big is that? And I got everything from a Sherman tank to an aircraft carrier to it's 14 inches left to right. 14 inches. It's very small, but it's just sitting there. Right. You know, it's not something that should be there. That's not something that should just be there. Now there is our burnout area. Again, we're going to go through that real quick because okay, here we go. What do you see there? That is a very small piece. And to me, it looks like something split in half that, unfortunately, I don't have that here. You know, I actually duplicated that left side to see what it might look like if it had symmetry. And it was a very freaky face. So we're not even going to go there. Okay. This is that same similar area we were just in a while ago. Notice this object back here. It's a couple of feet tall. It actually is sitting on wheels down here, and it's got a cover over it. Right. This portion right here is a cover. Somebody has covered it, and there's all sorts of metallic objects just kind of laying around. There is a half pipe. This is something you shouldn't be seeing. Semicircle. I mean, that looks like a drainage pipe right there to me, and it is actually sitting there on the surface of Mars.
Crazy.
Now look at that one.
Yep.
There's no way. Now, remember that original image I showed where I showed the original rebar and everything kind of on a hillside? That's on that same hill. And that is absolutely right there all you need. That image right there should be all we need to say, hey, look, they've dug up something that is artificial. That screams artificiality two different ways. First, you have a block in the back with several right angles on it. And then you have this piece of whatever that is sticking out straight. You know, people need to remember rocks don't just do that. You know, you're not going to show this to me naturally. People will say, well, I think I can. No, you can't. It's not been done because we're brainwashed to think, well, this is what you see on other planets. I actually have people tell me, well, things look like that when you're on another planet. Well, how do you know that? You know, give me a break. There we go. Okay. Here's some pretty good stuff right here. Look at this. Ha! I love it. Look at the motif on this thing.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. Who knows? We looked at it 3D, multiple angles. It's sitting out there. It's sticking out of the mud or the muck or whatever. And it is absolutely, that's one of the most beautiful pieces, I think, because of the detail that is still there.
You know, I can understand, nature doing anomalous things every once in a while, but not to this magnitude, you know?
Oh, exactly. No, not over and over. Here's some examples of potential inscriptions and stuff that we found. Kind of brought that one out so you can see. Now, here's one. Right, you can see it right across the middle of that. It's going to be right here. It's looks like an S or a 5, and then going across right here.
Yeah, the other one you showed before looked almost like cuneiform.
It sure did, and I have had that said to me numerous times. Here's one I extracted.
Yeah.
You see right there, we have a snakehead S. There's one going vertically right here. Right up and down. Now, notice this. Again, bunch of mud and muck looking area. And there is a sign or some piece of something laying here. You can see how it's lipped up. You can see the shadow from it here. It's raised up off the ground. And you got an M, a strange looking, almost an O, C something, an emblem right here, an emblem here. They're all attached to this right here. We made sure of this in 3D. These are all attached. And to me, it looks like a sign. I think it's about a foot across, maybe. But once again, I mean, what could it be? Who knows? It could have been on someone's fence.
Could be.
I think that's a pretty good one right there.
Yeah.
Here's another one here that I found buried. Now, this one, right off, I just want you to notice, you know, shovels covered in mud are not supposed to appear on Mars. That is a spade shape if I've ever seen one. But to the left of it, it looks like cursive writing. Yeah. And there is what appears like an R to the right. Now
that looks runic, that R.
It really did. Now we ran through this. We ran through that. I want to show you a few other things here that have popped up. Now what we have here, this is going to be about 5 feet in length. That's molded cement, folks, or some other compound material. Absolutely, positively. And you can see where it's cracked right there. I don't know if you noticed, but on that left side, you can actually see a little bit of the what is probably some of the reinforcement material and everything
coming out of it. Yeah,
you can see seams here, expansion points, whatever you want to call them. They're probably expansion points. Here we go with some more fundamentals of a civilization. That is that's reinforcement right there. That is structural material. Let's let this zoom in again. This is large. This is about a 40-foot tall. This isn't showing the whole hill, okay? It's about 40 foot tall. And there are numerous points in here where you can see pieces of the actual structure that was holding this up. And that's one of them. It's coming in there. And there's another one right there. Can't dismiss this stuff. Now, we looked at this a few minutes ago.
Right, the hook.
Yeah, this is actually a clearer image of it. Now, here is more. This is concrete. This is a compound material that's broken up. Sometimes they hide that. and sometimes they don't. They kind of left that. You can see it there. Look at that.
Right.
That's not random stuff you ought to find on a planet.
And you think they leave it because either they forgot, or maybe they're just like, we're just tired of trying
That's
to manipulate all these
question.
photos.
There's so much of it. Look at this. That piece of concrete we saw a few minutes ago, that molded concrete. This is in that same area.
Yeah,
right
look at
there.
that scene.
Yeah, look at it. I mean, that's beautiful. They left that for us to see. It's kind of hard for me to stretch my imagination enough to figure out not only what this is bizarre. Not only do you have two objects sitting there that just shouldn't be there, how could you possibly look at that one in the middle and think that that's natural?
Yeah, that's not natural.
No, it's not natural at all. The only question to me is how much of that is covered up naturally and how much of it did the NASA folks cover up? That's my only question. That is a very small piece, just inches across, that, a lot of the researchers out there, they don't get excited about stuff like this. And I can't get excited about them if they don't. Look at the geometric shapes that we have here.
Yeah, the points.
In one image. One image. That's amazing. I mean, it almost looks like a throwing star there on the left, but
right. Yeah,
that's part of a mechanical moving piece.
Could be like a gear.
Could be. I don't know. I figured that these areas here to the left are these are teeth or stopping points or something in mechanics. Like this would move and probably ride up on this and stop against this, or then you adjust it and it comes down and it stops against this. You have things that are adjustable. Just like a lawn chair is adjustable. It's got different little angles that it can sit down in. It's going to be something like that. It's not, a lot of this is like the stuff we have on Earth. It's not that far fetched.
Wow. Was that?
Well, that's, once again, this is stuff right up close to the rover. It's very small. I say small. That shiny object, notice this isn't the shiny object they show on Yahoo and they say that we found a glob of something shiny on Mars. They won't show this. They ignore me on this or tell me to go away. It's too good.
Plastic.
It looks like plastic to me too. And they're on the right. There's all sorts of stuff. There's some type of webbing or whatever up here in the upper right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's right next to the, that's a Mastcam image, and it's right up next to the rover. And this is in that same area.
Look at that.
Looks like aluminum.
Yeah.
Now, when you show somebody that is and I say skeptic with a capital S, one of these skeptics that refuses to believe that there's something going on, they're going to say, well, that might have been something that came off the rover. I'm going to have to tell them, you tell that to me on every one of these that I show you, and then you tell me how the rover is even running anymore, because I'm sorry, pieces are not falling off of it. Besides, it's half buried down in the rock. It's got dirt on it.
It's got wear and tear on it.
That thing's been there, and it's mixed in with a bunch of cement anyway. That looks like aluminum. You understand? These are some of the reasons that a lot of people do not think that this stuff is even on Mars. There is that rumor going around that they're on Devon Island up there. I don't think that's actually Canada. It might be Newfoundland. I don't know, but they think it's Devon Island, or somebody says it's in Antarctica. These are some of the reasons, and I'm going to show you one of the big reasons. Now that, look at that. That's exactly how they presented it too. Look at the markings on it up here. See, people don't realize this exists. When I'm looking for squares and I'm looking for nuts and bolts and this and that, and this comes along, it's like, you know what? This is really good. How can you deny that? It may not be square. It may not be a circle. But that right there, folks, is something made by an intelligent source. Look at that. It looks like a tortoise shell.
Yeah, it does.
And you know what? It's about the size of a small turtle. And I found more than one of those. I don't know if that's what it is or not, but it definitely looks like the shell of an animal. Oh, we get better on the animals here in a minute. Look at this. Okay, we'll get back to the animals in a minute. Found this. This is about 4 inches across. People look at that and they think it's some type of spaceship or something sitting out there. It's just in one of the images from Mars, and it's sitting down there on the ground about 4 inches across. You can even make out uh, where it's connected to the ground right here, support posts,
Right.
three of them right here. We found it from two different angles, two completely different angles. Look at the detail on it, even. It's not near the landing site. For anybody that's going to say that, none of this stuff, by the way, is anything that has anything to do with landing gear, parachutes, landing site. All that has been thrown out. That's one of the first things the most common things. When it looks too good to be true, it usually turns out to be part of the parachute or stuff that was ejected when it landed, whatever. Oh no, this is miles away from that. No, this is something that's sitting there on the surface that's not ours. I don't know if those are bones or I don't know. What do you think about that? What comes to mind? Now that is.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know how like I grew up, watching cartoons, all this and that, and you have like this fictional stuff. Like we have like these really, you have the Smurfs, you have the Littles, you have Honey, I Shrunk the Kids with, miniature people.
Yes.
That last image that you showed me looked like a miniature structure, and this looks like almost like a miniature structure, almost like a Stonehenge.
Yeah. Are you talking about the silver block device?
Yeah,
it does. It does.
It looked like a miniature. It could be like a piece of a machine, but who's to say that
it looks
there
like
aren't micro, beings living on Mars as well.
I know that's what it looks like, and all I can say is, yeah, that is what it looks like. It's never been even insinuated to me that there were any. Let me say that it's never been insinuated to me at all that any of the beings were less than a couple of feet tall. Now, I'm not saying that they're not, because there were rumors that there were little tiny people running around that got run over by the rover, and I don't have any support for that. There was a rumor that went around, but if that were true, then what you're saying, yeah, that could go with it. There is a fairly famous image of a man leaning back on a rock in one of these images, and it really looks like a man. His arm, I mean, I've got it in some of my videos. It's like, look at this. He's leaning back. He's got on a vest. I finally really got into that and looked at it. He's going to be about 10 inches tall if he is.
Yeah, that's because the thing is, you got to understand, right? Like the folklore, elves, right? You have the elves, you have fairies. They're supposed to be myths, but they're based off of something that's potentially.
Oh yeah, probably. Yeah, absolutely.
Not only that, have you seen? There's this video that circulated. I think it's in Indonesia, where these guys are riding dirt bikes, and this little hobbit-looking thing runs out in front of them and takes off. I don't know if you've seen that video.
Now I'm going to have to watch that. Now,
yes. Now I'm saying, like, they say there's little people. They found the Homo floresiensis, which are supposed to be the Hobbit people. So it's possible that we could have small beings, not only here on Earth, but also could have inhabited other planets as well. So,
and we're talking about the leprechauns too.
Leprechauns. That's what I'm saying. It's supposed to be all myth, but
they're real. If you recall, they always had some sort of magic associated with them. Well, if they were real, and if they were something that came from somewhere else, well, they probably at one time had a means of doing certain things that would have appeared as magic.
Right.
So I'm not ruling any of it out. I'm not ruling any of it out. I will say that I'm certain as I can be, without putting one in here in front of you, that we have a 2 foot tall Martians originally and 6 foot tall Martians. I'm pretty sure of that. I'm not going to say the rest can't exist. I'm not going to say yes or no yet. We're not going to rule that out because we see too much that does, like you say, it does fit it. And we've got things like this, mechanical things. There's a couple, it's either a valve or cams right here. They both have points of rotation. This looks like a hand valve, either that or a cam. It's going to turn on this rotating point here. This one's got a rotating point, and this came from that big rock sitting there. There's actually another one sitting right here, and it's oriented the same. And this is something that I brought out to show that there's artifacts sticking out of a lot of these supposed rocks.
Look at that, man. Wow.
Yeah, no, let me show that. That's an image. Dave Gannett supplied some of these because he's done a lot of work, and he presents most of these in 3D also. And he gives names to them. And I hope everyone understands that a lot of times Dave gives it the name that it's popular with, but we both agree that we know that it might not be that. And I'm going to show you why I'm saying that in a minute. That right there almost looks like a petrified book laying there. I mean,
right.
But it's beautiful. It's got a style. There's one of them he threw in there. We've got distinct pieces sticking out. This is something that I come across lately that just baffles me because that is so obvious. It just kills me. As to what it is, who the hell knows? But I don't have the picture in here, but it moves. I did catch them on this one. And by the way, folks, I get told all the time, there's a UFO back here. No, this to the left, this is a camera anomaly that happened in thousands of images. It's in the exact same spot. This is not a UFO. This, though, is some type of device that was sitting up there on top. And we have found it in another image from many Martian days earlier where this top portion is rotated. It's rotated 90 degrees to the right.
Right.
They usually don't do that. That's one of the ways that we go in and figure out whether or not something can be a living thing. We look at it on different days. And I'm going to show you one in a minute of a bird where I know people don't like it sometimes that we have to be debunkers. We have to get rid of the stuff that's not real. This is actually a different image of that same area. And if you notice, the configuration's a little different here. It looks like it's wider open. Let me show you both of them. Here, they're going to come together. That's really kind of bizarre. What the hell does that look like to you? I mean, I think of something with its mouth open, but I think
it looks like a monster.
Yeah, I think it's a mechanical device, and I think what we're seeing up here that looks like an eye, I think that's a point of rotation, and and so is this. And I think there's work going on Mars, currently. Besides, okay, there's who we call Martian Missy. This image right here does not look like much at first, but I want to show you. We found a chain. Okay, we're going to get it close. Okay. This is a chain back here wrapped around. You see how a chain, how you have your points where they connect.
With the interlock, yes.
Got the little dots going along here. It's like like you would say, a chain on a bicycle or a chainsaw or something. Right. And this is some type of guard that has broken away from it. If you looked, see these curved pieces, this straight piece. If you saw this in 3D, you would really realize this section here has broken and moved towards us, and it was some type of guard or something that sat over this chain, just like you have on a chainsaw or something else, or even on your bicycle, where if that chain comes loose, it stops it from slinging up and cutting you on the leg. He went to get his bicycle, y'all. I know what he did. When you live in Florida, you got a bicycle right there ready to go at all times.
You have to, yeah.
Hey man, you got the weather, but there's definitely a chain and some type of guard there on this. Oh yeah, we got even closer there. We got a lot of stuff like this, and it's not our imagination. We've done our work on this. Here's an area that you can see some of their handiwork and more serpent looking. People generally get the idea of serpents and reptiles when they look at Mars pictures. It just, whether that's really what that is or not, you can't help but see, snake heads sticking out. And again, I'm not saying that's what it is, but, we do know the Egyptians had a thing about crocodilators and other type reptiles. That is very, very, very pyramid looking, step pyramid, but it is not that big. It is only about 10 foot tall. I've measured it, but still, it is what it is. It's something of artificial construct. Here's another set of images that, another image where I applied that obfuscation technique to. Originally, we were way back here looking at that area. Now this is an area before it got up there close, and you can see that trashed out area. Oh, I want you to look at this. I need to stop this. I'd put these together. Oh, right there. That's not normal. That is a cleanup pile. Somebody, that's one of these in your face things to the people that are really curious. That's a bulldozer or something. Somebody has pushed up a big collection of debris. They're cleaning up. And random piles of stuff like this just don't appear. You don't see that. You don't see that anywhere. You don't see that on Earth. You go out in the desert, things aren't just, even when something falls, it breaks apart and you can see a fall pattern. This stuff has been collected. And they do this every now and then. I think they're really jacking with people that really care. And most of the rest of the people don't look close enough to really see it. Now, this is an image. David Gannett, myself, and Chris Maroney were looking at this thing because we see all these boulder looking things that look like they're reared up coming up out of the ground. And he did some real good work trying to break through the facade that's on this. And he did a beautiful job. And you can see there's actually markings up here. There's some type of piping right here. You can see it running through. I don't know if this metal, because this was a NavCam image. It's in grayscale. But this is some sort of, mechanical device, something sticking up out of the ground that actually has the working, the guts still in it. Dave Gannett did an excellent job on this. And again, the inscription across here,
right.
I don't know what that one looks like.
Like a helmet to me.
Yeah, I said, yeah.
Because if you see the front part where the nose would be at, there looks like a little filter, like a gas mask filter. If you go towards like the front of where the nose would be.
That's very interesting, because the size of this, I have to go back and look. It's not more than a foot or foot and a half, I think, across. So yeah, I think it could really, that's very interesting. We might look into that. There again is another set of these. Look at these valves or whatever that's sticking out of this rock. And here we go. Now I love this because this is from an image that was rendered by Keith Laney, who actually helped find a landing spot, I think, for one of the rovers. I mean, he's very good at this stuff. He had contracted to NASA once, and he rendered this right off the raw data. And so I'm saying this stuff's already covered up. But look at this image before it gets all the way zoomed in. Let me see if I can stop this quick enough. Okay. If you can see the whole thing, this rock here, it actually looks like it's got wings. It looks like a chicken. You just can't see the whole thing. But here's a portion of it that didn't get covered up. It looks like gold.
Yeah, it looks like.
We found more like this. It's like they have an automatic system of taking something, and if it appears to be artificial, we're going to hide it. But I think that software makes mistakes. So this is one of those mistakes. And I'd add, I believe that was the actual, Jimmy, I think that's the actual material right there. Whether it's gold or not, it's gold in color. But NASA's rendered product of this and Keith Laney's product, his is actually clearer, but both of them show the same cover up, the same skew, the same piece of gold sticking out. That's why I say the raw data that they're given for people to do this is not really raw data. Now, this is bizarre because I originally presented this as, reptiles fleeing a disaster, because that's what it looks like. A bunch of snakes and lizards and whatnot. But, really, I think it just may be more reinforcement material, because you get in here and look at it. It's wires, rods and whatnot, just kind of sticking out in a random pattern. I don't know. Maybe the problem that I have and other people have with this, if you look at it, they all seem to have eyes. And I don't want to go pareidolia crazy, but they really do. If you get in there and really look, every one of these looks like a snake or a lizard sticking out.
Right.
So I don't know what's going on. You see some bizarre stuff. You saw this earlier, of course.
Yeah.
And you saw this. You saw some of this. Now, there's a clear image of that device that we saw sticking out of a hill. That's obviously magnificent. And what do you make of that? Does that not fit right in that little cave opening?
Yeah, it
It
looks like
really
it's
looks to
underneath.
me like it's come out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a oh, here we go. This is, you might have saw this. This is a recent find in this 10-foot tall hill. We have some type of robotic arm or piece of machinery right there. We've unearthed it, or unearthed it, I guess you could say. And well, come on, Jimmy, let's look at that. The thing is actually, come on now. Come on. Come on. Okay. I'm my own worst enemy here. This is kind of how it looked originally. And then what I did was I just eliminated some of the others so you could see it. And we have more images. It's actually strapped on. You can see the strap going across it right here. There's a huge strap going across this.
Right. It looks like a
And then
rope
you can see, and there is a lot of detail in it. There's actually a bucket type thing right here. And there's folds in this, like it would open up. You see points of rotation. You can see this joint. There's a cover guard on it right here. This extends out to here. This is a joint that's going to go up and down. This shoulder joint right here is going to be back and forth. And it is strapped onto this hill or whatever in a manner to keep it from swinging back and forth. I think that hill is another junk pile. I think a lot of these hills that we're seeing are disguised junk piles. I think it's a big cleanup. I don't think that this is an excavator or backhoe or, other type of piece of cleanup machinery,
right,
because of the way it's strapped down. I think it's something that's just strapped onto that hill. I think the machinery's hidden a little better than that. You absolutely know what that looks like. Now that in itself, you say, well, that could just happen. Okay. Sure. It looks like a pyramid that's fallen apart, but there are better ones. Look at this. This was found by Dave Gannett. Look at this back here. And he's put an example here of one of our pyramids along with this one. And here's the thing about this. There's more stuff up around it too. This is one of his images. If he produces an image, he scoured it over in stereoscopic 3D. You can rest assured. His dad invented the ViewMaster, by the way. And we all know what
that toy.
Oh yeah. The 3D toy, the original.
I used to love that thing.
Oh yeah. And this is his son, and he's a 3D expert, and he has looked at this. He scoured it over. This is a pyramid in the distance, and it's very, very similar to what we have. There's been a number of those found on Mars, and this one's pretty famous.
I've seen this.
Yes. And it does appear to be, what it looks like. You notice there's other markings over here. This is very Egyptian. And there's a little bit of inscription on it right here and everything. And this is another, Dave Gannett brought this one out and put this together for me so you can see the comparison. Absolutely, positively, there is an Egyptian connection. I'm telling folks that. And that is why some of these things seem so Egyptian. They're the ones that brought it to us. Now, I've seen iguanas. And the funny thing about this is, if you look at this from another angle, it doesn't look like an iguana anymore, but it's definitely a piece of statuary. You can see the base. It's a piece of statuary of something sitting there, but from another angle, it doesn't look so iguana-ish. And this is another piece of something sitting there that is very animal head-like, nostrils, eyes. And I think it's part of their decor that they had going on. There's a pottery piece, just exactly how they presented it, sitting right by the rover. Another pottery piece, part of it, sitting there. Look at that.
Looks like
David Gannett presented that. We've seen it in 3D.
Yeah, it looks like an alien bong.
It looks like a bong, doesn't it? These guys had it going on.
Oh wow!
We got a caster wheel here. Absolutely. Again, a lot of people think these pictures aren't coming from Mars, and it's hard to argue with them. On top, because look. It's. I wonder where we got some of our ideas. Is what I'm trying to tell people.
Oh, for sure.
It's how it came to us.
Martial lives matter.
Yeah, anything to get people's attention. Well, the thing is, that relates to human lives, because if this occurred, and I'm saying it did, we need to look at ourselves. Why are we so concerned about the aftermath of this nuclear destruction on Mars if we're not concerned that it's not going to happen to us? Now, that's the famous walrus bone that's been looked at, and they say it's very close to a walrus that's found around Devon Island, that type. That's why people think that that's where this is, because the rover went up there and did test runs. But I want you to check out, there's a better one than this.
Wow.
I love this. Okay. Here's a little demonstration that I put together for this, that I've ran several times, really looking into this. I think it is a horse. You got 2 rows of teeth. There's just too much here to be accidental. Okay. Okay. I want you to look at this other stuff going along here. Look at these mechanical pieces attached to it. What did we have like that would be associated with a horse? There we go, right there. You got the bridle. Let's go back to this. We got the whole shebang with this horse. We got the teeth, we got the jaws, we got the eye socket. We have these pieces. Somebody had harnessed this animal. This thing was ridden. Okay. And we only have one image of that, but I found this image. There was only one Mastcam image. And by the way, the Mastcam images are very clear, very high definition, whereas the Navcam images are not. But often the Navcam images don't have the skewing on them that the Mastcam images do, because they are so clear. They don't have to do as much work to ones like this. That is that same horse head, I'm saying, or some type of animal like a horse. You can still see the teeth here. Even clear, you can see the definition between them here. And here I'm going to give you, I went in and measured it, and okay, there's the 2 side by side, and there is your size reference for it right there. That is about the size animal that it was. And by the way, that bone that looked like a walrus femur or somebody's leg bone was found about 30 feet from this. They're right there in the same area. A lot of people don't realize that. Here, just run you through some things here that absolutely are just rocks sitting around. Every one of these are just rocks sitting around. Couldn't be anything else.
And it's got a glare to it too, that dome looking.
Oh yeah. Now look at this thing sitting on its side. I did this to show the obfuscation work more. Look at this metal laying around. That's exactly how they presented it. There's a small horse. That's definitely a horse, but it is a, here we go. It is a model, some type of toy or decoration. Here is a huge chunk of metal that they did not cover up at all. Look at it. It's folded over right here. You can see the gleam off the top of it. Everything else around it has been disguised, but it has not. And they just left it sitting there. Why did they do that? Chris, I don't know why. It's like they leave things out here in our face.
Well, maybe because, like I said, maybe they either tired of trying to cover everything up, or they just, we make mistakes. So they probably made a mistake and didn't cover something up that they should have.
Look at all that going on back there behind that hill.
Yeah, that looks like a city almost.
Yeah, it looks like a network of pipes going on down there in that drop off down below. Absolutely is not natural. This is that original area we looked at, and I like this picture because you can see this foundation here in the background, this squared off area. Here's a few more by Dave Gannett, just various things. I like this. Look at this burned out hole in this piece of it looks like metal to me. Talking about the nuts and bolts, like I've said, we're sitting on top of a civilization. Well, here is some of the metal sticking out in a Mastcam image right here. And here's a screw or bolt, some type of fastening device right here. You don't usually find them in the Mastcam images. Here's more pieces of just sheets of metal and whatnot laying around. None of this stuff really gets the attention. Oh, you want to see this? Of people that aren't really looking deeply into this because they don't believe it exists. This is an image that is famous because it looks like a pistol.
Yeah,
it does. And Dave called it the famous gun, but we don't know that it is.
Right.
It's probably something artificial, just like this, but it does look like a gun. And the thing about this is this stuff that I'm showing you here, look at that.
Yeah, that looks like a landed spaceship.
It really does, doesn't it? It's got support posts, everything. Those are machined parts right there, sitting right down below. It looks like it's sitting in mud,
Right.
down below the rover.
Looks like
And
bolts.
Did you say bolts?
Like bolts, yeah.
Oh man, that's very good. Because let me show you. Very good. You mentioned that. Just to the right of that, I'm going to show you the same image.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Like
I'm going to show you the same image in NavCam. Now, I want everybody to think hex head bolt on the right, Phillips head screw on the left. Okay, there's that. If you noticed, right, I'm going to stop that right there. Okay. That Mastcam image was looking right over here. Here are those components that we saw. And this is one that I think they really put it in our face because there's hex head bolts all through the rover here. And there's hex head bolts in this device here. And you're going to see them really up close here as this thing moves down. There's one right there, and there's actually another smashed one right here. But further to the right, there's several of them in here. There's one, there's there. Now watch. Let's just brighten it up so you can really see them. And look at those three. And it's probably not all. I just went ahead and showed. Now this one right here is one going in sideways to this.
Right.
You've seen that. You've seen mechanical stuff, just the way things are put together.
Right.
And it looks, there's at least one more. And this one the one on the right looks like a Phillips, probably a Phillips to me. And this is actually another hex head bolt right here. This is mechanical stuff that we're driving over, just like the stuff here on Earth, most of it. Not all of it, but I'm going to say a lot of it at least is just like what we would have, man. It's not that different than what we have. These are images that a woman named Charlotte Gordon worked on, where she did extensive work cutting through Mastcam images, and she was finding the same stuff that I'm finding, that this is actually, look
at that. It looks like a wreck, like a site, like a crash site.
Yes, it does. Well, but yes, it does look like a crash site, because I'm telling you, it was a war. I tell you, this part right here is so good. She did some really great work, and it's hard to do on a Mastcam image. See what I'm saying about that hill back there? And look at just look at the detail that she was able to bring out. This is stuff that's crashed out, burned out. A lot of the outer skin of these things is gone, and you're just seeing what we call here in East Texas as innards.
Right, the skeleton of it.
Yes, exactly. And that's what's going on that hill back there. And that's an effect I threw in on a video.
Oh, okay. But I thought Mars was on fire.
Yeah, well, I tell you what it was. So you see back there, I'm saying these hills, they're scrap heaps.
Right.
They're calling them buttes. A bunch of them, they're scrap heaps. They're doing work, and then they're covering it up. I don't think a lot of this, there may have been some fallout and stuff on certain individual items, but they're covering it up with this crap and then changing the way that the images are developed. There's that object you were talking about earlier that appeared to be something that a very tiny person could go inside. And
it could be. And I apologize for going off the deep end with the little.
It's not off the deep end. I'm not ruling it out. And what I want to show people here is this is how this. Well, so we won't go too long on time here. I want to show you a couple of things that we dispel. Things such as, now we've found a number of hands like this sticking out of the mud. You see 3 fingers and somebody making the OK. We've looked at this in 3D, and it looks just like a statue or a let's just call it petrified hand. I found half a dozen of these sticking out of the ground. Looked at them in 3D. They're either statues or, somebody hand, look at all that stuff around it was, in this destruction, cry for help, trying to dig out, in the mud at one time. And we ended up with mud fossils. I want you to look. I know that sounds crazy, but I've looked through a lot of that. This is this was put out by people as being a bird sitting up there, and man, it sure looks like it. It looks like a East Texas buzzard sitting there, but it's not. It's not at all. We looked at it from various angles. I think they wanted it to look like that. It's not a bird. That looks like a bird sitting up there too. But in actuality, it's not. It's actually a couple of, it looks like antennas sitting there. You can see on the one, something holding it up. I think they're transmission and reception antennas sitting there. They're not birds. Okay, see where I'm pointing?
Yeah, that's a support beam, right?
Yeah, support right there for it. Yeah, it's not a bird. But they're perfectly fine with people thinking they're birds. You see more metallic stuff here. We get along here. Here's some other things that's just, we could go all day with this. And when I put together a highlight video, it's really hard to take stuff out because of all the stuff that's going on Mars. And I want you to look at this river, some of the places that it's flowing back here. That is what we're looking at. That is water. That's water. We know which direction it's going. We know where it splits off. Sometimes it's covered. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it looks better than others, but it's always where it should be. Now that is the original one from planet Mars. It's not just a rock that I uncovered that got all the attention. And I want you to look at this before I change the contrast in this picture. I'm going to stop it right there. Good job, Jimmy. Good job, Jimmy. I'm glad you're going to edit this. I'm giving you a lot of ramble on. You're going to have a lot to edit. Okay.
No, I'm not editing nothing.
This is the way that this thing appeared.
Right.
Now that is about 20 foot. That's about that rise back there is about 20 feet tall. Okay. And oh my gosh, there's a score of artifacts laying around on it. We're not going to get into that. Wow. It's really great. And there's an area behind it that just really looks like it's nothing. But check this out. I changed the contrast on this, and look at that. And I want you to notice this little UFO looking thing here as we bypass it. It's really cool. It's sitting there. It's got it's
hovering.
It's got 3 legs. You're going to see.
Oh, it does. Okay, I can't really.
Yes, and it's always there. It never takes off. It's there in all the images. But look at that water that appeared behind it.
Yeah. It looks like a lake.
Okay. Okay. Now you see this a little bit.
Right.
There's others up here too, but man, this has been one of the most interesting images. I love this. And now what we're going to do, there it was original. Now we're going to go in closer. Look at that. This appeared by me. It's amazing what happens when you remove stuff. And there was somebody that told me he liked what I did because I don't add, I take away.
Right.
And I do that a lot. Look at this, just the way they presented it. You can see that
a shoreline.
Yes, that is over a cliff that is down 20 or 30 feet down. That is that same river downstream just a few Martian days later. It's still there. Now, I didn't do anything to bring it out. You understand? This is there. This is the way they put these images out. I only did it in that first one, but these connect to it, which is more proof that it's there. Now, that one looks like a cartoon. But I want you to keep following it here. It's just going to keep going. Look at this. Now, one of my favorites is coming up on this. And I believe I really like that one. Look at that, would you?
Yeah. It looks like a wave hitting a shore.
It does. You know what? That is actually some type of piping or something that's laying there. But it looks on the one that's closer to us. And on the other side, though, yeah, it does. You can see the waves rip. You can see the ripple in the water.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. It looks like it's breaking up. Of course, it wouldn't be breaking like that, but it does. It looks like an ocean coming in.
I know you wouldn't know this, but how deep do you think that could be?
You know what? I don't know. I do not know. I do not know. I know it's there. I got confirmation it is there. And again, for those that are skeptics of it, that first image, there were a lot of people that hated me because they said, well, you changed the image. Well, I sure did. I got it back to close to the original. All of this is just Martian days right down the line after it. Just days later, I did not change this image. All this deep contrast that's on here, I downloaded it like that right from the their MSL Analyst Notebook. Their official site came in like this, and it's not just a freak thing in one picture. I showed how it all connects. It is a flowing river, and here it is again. It's going to continue here. And here it is again, further downstream. And here it is at the base of what they call Mount Sharp. And what do you usually find when you've got a big stream? You usually find civilization, right?
Usually, yes.
We're pretty sure that we've got stuff going on up there still. Who is this guy?
That's my friend. He's just contacting you. I'm sorry.
We've got structures up here. We don't know if they're new, if they're old. They appear in numerous images. They're pretty far in the back. There's actually a wall right here, some type of wall. We've looked at them in numerous images. There's domed shape. It's hard to see in this one, but right here, it's going to be very hard to see in this, but there is an A-frame right here. There's an A-frame and almost a red roof right here going back. It almost looks like a church. You know, if an old wooden church with a brown roof and A-frame. And I'm trying not to use my imagination too much. I'm just telling you it's what it looks like. There are primitive, I say primitive like ours now,
right,
small community structures back here. And we have been wondering if this is not something that's popped up that wasn't part of the destruction. Maybe this is where the folks are staying that are doing this cleanup, because there's a cleanup going on there. And here's fresh water right down here. Well, I take it back. You know, I don't know how fresh that water is, right, but there's definitely water flowing down there. And I had a skeptic say, well, then we know there's water. NASA said there's water. You know, they're going to use that against me. They never have admitted to any type of flowing streams. They have not done that yet. They said there is liquid water under certain conditions. That's as far as they went. We found water all the way back. These images have come out since they said that. Some before, some after. So it's lip service. That's all it is. They're giving us lip service to keep going, to keep getting funded. But in reality, no. NASA's there looking at the remains of an annihilated civilization that was destroyed by a war, and it was nuclear. I'm trying not to say it like a Southerner. I'm trying not to say it like JFK nuclear and George Bush. Both those guys said nuclear.
Yeah.
George Bush Jr. Nuclear. It's hard for me, but
it's all right.
You know, and the reason we know that is because the Viking land or soil samples is one reason. Anomalous levels of xenon-129, which is a heavy isotope, and it's not unusual to have. You're going to have xenon-129, but it's not going to be in the anomalous levels that it was. It's a fingerprint for nuclear detonations like we've had here on Earth. We did not have the fingerprint we have here until we started exploding nuclear bombs. The first test, that's when our fingerprint started changing. By the way, that's how they know that meteorites come from Mars that they find in Antarctica, because the fingerprint matches those found by the Viking soil samples. And that fingerprint says there's big nuclear detonations going on here. So yes, it's happened. That's why they're there. They're there looking at that. They don't want us to know that. Can't tell you why, but it's real. And that's what we do. That's what we do on my channel and with the guys that help me out. We're trying to show people without guessing too much what's really in these images. That's all we're trying to do. And we've gotten, I feel like over 1 million people have thought about it that didn't think about it before because of what I'm doing? Oh, yes, absolutely. I think I've made 1 million people get off the fence and have to look at it seriously because of the multitude of imagery that we have, the multitude of evidence that we have to support our claims. And are we going to prompt Mars, not Mars, but NASA or the ESA, European Space Agency, or any of these to come out and say, okay, you got us? No. They're not going to come out and admit this. They can't now. That they're too deep. What they're going to do is, I don't know what they're going to do. Do I think there's going to be an admittance to extraterrestrials at all? No, I do not. Do I think there's a possibility of a fake invasion? Oh, sure. They're going to fake probably a lot of stuff in the future. They've already faked stuff. If we'll go out and shoot down balloons, and get a distraction saying they're UFOs, there's no telling what they'll do. But to really admit, what's going on, no, I don't see that anytime soon. But what we will do is we will keep on showing the people what's going on, without expecting anything out of the good people that the National Aeronautics and Space Agency. They can just keep on. By the way, most of those people have no idea. It is a very compartmentalized organization. You do your job, and you don't know what's going on in another module.
Right.
We believe there's only a very trite few people that actually know the truth. It's very, very limited. I don't know who they are, but there's a lot of people that just have to keep their mouths shut because they know a little bit. But I think that most of the people have really no idea. They're just doing their job.
Yeah, that's how the military is. It's very compartmentalized, and the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, and vice versa. It's not a surprise of that. But I wanted to get into something. I urge anybody that watches this to go on Jimmy Roberts' YouTube channel, the Real Jimmy Roberts one. There's a video called, and you talked about it already. Yeah, actually, you were showing right now some of the stuff called Planet Mars. It's not just a rock. It's a little over 30.
Well, no, actually, no. That one's kind of outdated. That one's outdated. We got very better. Our techniques now are so much better. No, actually, if they just go, to the Real Jimmy Roberts one, the latest list of videos that we have up, any of them. I got you. Planet Mars, not just a rock, got us off and rolling, but we are so far beyond our capabilities at that point that, just any of the recent videos you're going to see some good stuff.
Right. Really. So that first video though, what really got my attention. I mean, I like the stuff with the the structures or whatever, but it was more of like the statuesque. You had this one statue that you were able to find one side of it, and then you flipped it over and you created like pretty much a being. You said it was a statue that had fallen over essentially.
Yes, and I don't think it's fallen over. And this is one of those things where I took some liberty because I saw that, and I'm trying to, I believe when you go to the channel, the Real Jimmy Roberts one, I believe the last video that we uploaded a couple of weeks ago, which is a collection of some of the better stuff, what we were coming off of just now, as you were saying. I'm trying to remember what I even entitled the thing. You're always trying to come up with titles that YouTube will like. I believe I do have that in there. And I took the liberty of duplicating what I was seeing laying there on the ground, which is about 9 foot in length. I don't think it fell. I think it was something that was seen that was on the ground that was in the shape of a being and it's half covered up. And yes, this one I'm not 100% on. I could have just been luck, but when I duplicated that one, gave it symmetry. I had the left side of it. I copied it, gave it symmetry on the right. It is a winged being. Yes, he's got a cape. He's wearing a cape and he's standing there like, look at me. And the thing about it is you can see the joints in his legs. His feet are missing. He's got a hand missing, but everything else is there. Yeah, and I really do think that's what it is. It's just one of those things that I can't say 100% because I only had half of it, and I am assuming symmetry on it. But at the least, it's very interesting, and it's laying around an area that is full of artifacts that cannot be denied, such as the concrete that we talked about, molded concrete, across there, and other things, and the burnout area, the rectangle. That's all right in the same area, right? Same images. So it's right there where there's a bunch of stuff that's really, we do know is going on. So it could very well be exactly what I'm showing. But yeah, it's in that. Yeah, that's pretty popular. And I've really tried to get as many angles as I can. And it appears to be what it is, but and
it has eyes.
Yes, it has
eyes. Yeah, it looks like a being. But what I wanted to talk about was
before you leave that, there's something very important. Now let me tell you, okay. My wife, my wife, Missy, is one of the most intelligent people that I know. She is grounded, very grounded. She sees what's going on. She knows I'm not full of bull. She knows some of what I know, but she grew up very grounded. She'd be the last person to be a conspiracy theorist. Let's put it that way. She's a registered nurse, and there's nobody I would want attending to me should something happen other than her. You know, in an emergency situation, you know, there's not a doctor that I'd rather have there than her. She knows what that woman is sharp. She saw this in a conference that I was given in Houston with a guy named, I don't know if you know Daryl Sims is.
Yeah, I interviewed him like 10 episodes ago.
Yeah, the alien hunter. I love
him. He's awesome.
Oh yeah, I was down there with him, and we were in a conference, and Missy noticed this. When you guys look at that video, there's a uterus in it. She says that's a female.
Wow.
It is a very clear uterus outlined. After I duplicated that, I said, you're exactly right. It's not just a uterus. There's some other parts there. You could see it. It's a female. Absolutely. Whatever that was, unless it's just a huge coincidence, they were giving, you know, for whatever reason they made statue or plaque, whatever that was, they were indicating that this is a female. There's no doubt in my mind about it. It doesn't look like any female that I would be interested in.
Right.
This female was 9 foot tall. It had a cape or wings, and it's just scary looking, and no feet. But it's a female. Y'all check that out because she noticed that.
Yeah, check it out.
We all sat there in that conference going, "Wow,
yeah.
We never noticed that." But yep, absolutely.
So
yeah. Tell me what you think about that. Go ahead. Now you were going to ask something else.
No. I was going to talk about like some of the other pictures of beings that you've found, or what could be beings that you found on Mars. And what I've noticed is a lot of them seem like they're coming out of the ground. I don't know if you've noticed that. And I was going to ask you, do you think there's an underground facilities maybe on Mars?
I think the civilization's buried. I think those are either statues that are half uncovered, or there's some type of mud fossil of something trying to escape this. A lot of people agree a lot of this looks like mud moved through. You know, water broke loose, mud moved through, because it just looks like it flowed like that. The things look like they've been carried with water, that, you know, a dam broke in this area that they're in. You know, this is like a rover Curiosity is what these images are from. We're talking about a 20-mile stretch. By the way, that thing will never die. That is an amazing piece of machinery. Went up there in 2012, and it's still running around remotely taking pictures. You know, you're not going to convince me somebody's not doing maintenance on that thing. But we're talking about 20 miles, I think it's traveled. So through much of it, it looks like water ran through there. And we think it carried things, and some of it might have been living beings. It looks to me like a lot of them, people have their hands sticking up out and had some type of mud fossil go on. I've watched stuff on mud fossils. I don't know if it's all real here on the planet, but some of it sure looks like it. You know, we know things like that have kind of happened in parts of the world. So that may be what happened. So I'm going to say maybe that's what it is.
Right.
Because it sure looks like people, you know, reaching out. There's a number of them that just look like hands, you know, like this. I've seen a few of them, or this is what one of them looked like that we saw. Somebody holding his hand up like this. You know, that might have been his last breath, or could have been a statue that's sticking up out of the ground. I don't know. But there are humanoid-like beings there. Yes, absolutely.
You say you had one with a vest, right? That was riding a contraption. Looks like they were straddling.
No, the one that's the vest, he's leaning back, but he would be less than a foot tall. And I couldn't get real good accuracy on that. And I saw him vaguely in an image taken days and days later. You could see him still standing back there, exactly the same. And that tells me it's not a living thing, because it hasn't moved. If it hadn't moved in other images days later, no, it's not a living thing. Somebody suggested, could it be like a toy that was planted back there or something? Sure. Who knows? Maybe it was toy. Maybe it was something planted back there by the people that are up there with the rover. Whoever that is, set it back there to get in the picture.
Right.
But it's definitely, it's a man standing there. I just don't know what it is, but he's not alive. he didn't show up standing there leaning against a rock twice in, you know, I think it's 3 or 4 Martian days later. Nah, no way. Mm-mm.
So do you think there's humans that you think we sent humans out there? You think there's humans living up there? You said somebody doing maintenance on the rover.
Well, you would think there would be. How's that thing still running?
Because you have a picture of like it looks like someone with a backpack, kind of.
Well, that's one that's,
shadow.
you know, and who knows about that? That's just a shadow.
Right.
That's a silhouette. And somebody came out with that, and that one got kind of famous. So, you know, I don't know. It does. It looks like somebody doing service on it. But, you know, now I'm going to say, hey, maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Right, I understand.
But, you know, I can't neither confirm nor deny whether or not there's people up there. But if I had to bet on it, I'd say, yeah.
All right, I got you. So before we end this, Jimmy, you started off by saying that you've had experiences. Would it be too personal for you to get into some of those experiences that you've had?
No. You know, I've seen my share of UFOs. I've seen flying craft. I've got pictures of them. I've seen them at night. I've taken pictures of them. Absolutely non-conventional stuff. But, you know, I'm one of those people that I had something contact me when I was a teenager. I came right into my room and did it while I was wide awake and changed my life. And it wasn't a good experience. It wasn't good at all. It was horrific. And it happened in a blink of an eye. And it sounds crazy.
Can you go into detail? Do you mind?
Well, there's so much of it I don't remember. There was a memory suppression. I can't tell you if I left that room or not. You know, I had to talk to Daryl Sims about some of this because he is the foremost, you know, abduction and implant expert. And I did dig something out of my ear about 8 years later, and there was something placed in something went on in my ear that I thought a fly went in it. It's really weird how this stuff happens and how these things operate. You're getting there, you're about to get in bed, and bam, it's just like you're just thrown instantaneously into this horrific hell.
Yeah, I deal with that.
Yeah, and I know that there's people that have night sweats, night terrors, and things sitting on their chest, and somebody's in the room, and this and that, and that may be all just natural things that happen to people. But you know, the sleep paralysis. But I assure you that there is a type of paralysis that can happen to you when you're wide awake, and that is not sleep paralysis. And I'm not saying that all those people had something happen to them or not. I just know that myself and my son at the exact same age had the same thing happen, nearly identical, while he was sitting absolutely upright, you know, and he didn't even know about mine. You're immediately in this other world. It's horrific. You're in 2 places at once. You're at your ceiling. You've been somewhere. There's somebody there. You're also where you just were, where you just lie down in your bed. And there's this feeling of absolute hopelessness. I thought I'd, growing up, you know, Presbyterian and around Southern Baptist and stuff, you know, I'd just gone to hell, you know, and I didn't get to say bye to anybody. That's what had happened to me at that moment. That's the way it felt. And then you're snapped out of it and your life's changed. And you go in your parents' room to sleep on the floor when you're 16 years old.
Right.
And your dad wants to know what all the commotion was in there. He heard it. And my dad was a realist like you wouldn't believe, but he heard the buzzing, the ruckus, all of it.
Wow.
And thought I was up doing something. I started questioning him. What'd you hear? He said, there's a buzzing or a humming sound coming from in there. And he accused me of doing drugs or something, I guess. Right. Something, it wasn't anything like that going on. But I was different from that point on. I was different. Ghosts and things like that would be around me at times. I would have out-of-body experiences, verified. You know, sometimes when I would just nearly go to sleep, it would happen. And you could really have fun if you could turn it into a lucid dream, you know.
Right.
But these usually started out as something, you know, I could tell somebody what they were doing, you know, in another room or across town a number of times. And I found out this was common in my family, some of these things that had happened. And the same thing happened to my son. You know, he was sitting on his bed about to eat something that he had warmed up, bam, hit him. He was never the same. To this day, it's haunting him because he had stuff happen to him. So that's when things changed, and I started noticing stuff, that wasn't normal. As far as UFOs and all that, there got to be a little bit of an interest in that direction at that point, because I knew all of a sudden that there was something else. I knew it was there. I knew it was real. It had touched me. I'd touched it. I had an audible witness to it. And then, through the years, you try to play it off. Oh, man, that couldn't have happened. That couldn't have happened. And then you're reminded something occurs.
Yeah, that aha moment hits you.
Yeah. It hits you, says, oh, yes, it did. Then it happens again. And it did happen to me again, finally. And it's horrific. It's horrific. But you know how you wake up from a dream and actually you might have dreamt everything you just dreamt in the last 2 seconds. Sometimes your dreams are really deep and long, but actually some of them, they say, occur just as you're waking it up, but it seems like it went on for an hour. So whatever state I was put into, I can't tell you how long it all happened, other than it was less than 5 minutes that it seemed like an hour. And I don't have any confirmation that I ever left the room, except I do know that I was in 2 places at once. And of course, and I have tried to say this was some type of psychiatric issue or something, like I said, years later, until something else happens. Then it happens to my son. And of course, since then, I had to look into it deeper, and I found out, oh, no, it wasn't something like that at all. It wasn't a ghost. It wasn't a demon coming to get you. It was something else. It was something physical that they know how to manipulate themselves and through time and to get where they need to get. And I realized that they had put something in my ear, and then I dug it out and thrown it in the trash 8 years later. I did. I took it out, broke it in half. It had a fiber to it,
Right.
It was shaped like a little Percocet, a little football, flat. And I broke it open, and it was a fiber quality. And I worked for the government at the time. I worked with missiles and stuff. So yeah, I know.
Yeah, you didn't want to say nothing because you know what'll happen. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was in there, and it's like, I throw that in the trash, keep going. And Daryl Sims was really getting on to me about that 20, 30 years later. Says, why did you do that? I said, I didn't know what was going on. I was a kid. I thought the devil had come and got me. Right. But they leave you. They will. Some of them, whatever this is that does this, will leave you with a memory that obscures.
False memory.
Yes, what all went on, and you'll just get bits and pieces of the real thing. And people that are in the know for this stuff told me, go watch the movie Paycheck. Go watch the movie Paycheck. You said, I hadn't seen it. I watched it. It's a pretty good movie, actually, but I saw what was happening to him. They said, same type thing. He kept, his memory had gotten blotted out, and he was seeing little flashes of it. So, yeah, that stuff is real. So, that's what started it all. And, I'm pretty much removed from that as far as it affecting me anymore, because now I'm more into the tangible aspects of what's going on Mars. It's a physical place, nuts and bolts. That is so strange that it's got all the way to the point to where I'm showing there's nuts and bolts up there.
Right.
There's rebar and concrete type stuff up there. What's going on here? This all started with me with something popping into my room and placing something in my ear and leaving. And it's just weird, isn't it? And it goes from extremely almost unbelievable to now I'm looking at it as the most tangible thing there is. It's nuts and bolts up there on Mars. Well, why aren't they telling us that there's nuts and bolts and it's a place basically like this? So, it's weird, but that's all true.
Life's weird. Universe is weird.
Yeah, it is.
All right, Jimmy, thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing this. If you could do me a favor, send me like a picture that you're comfortable with so I can use in the thumbnail. And then once I do my edits and all that, I'll send you the link, and then you can do with that what you will, and I'll put it up on all my, social media stuff, But yeah, thank you, man. Okay. Appreciate it. This was awesome.
Yeah. When you put it up, I'll mainly what I'll do is I'll send people over. We got a lot of people that'll come over and watch.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's a bunch waiting for me to mess up. That's what they're waiting on.
That I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, you're not really stating any definitives other than that there's things outside of this planet that are not natural, and you're noticing it,
It's
particularly
there.
on Mars.
It's there. You know, stop by and we'll show it to you.
Yeah, that's it. There's nothing wrong with that. All right, boss. Have a great day. All right.
All right, man. Peace out. See you
See
later.
you, brother.